Welcome to The Fix. I'm your host, Brock Bevel. Today on the show, I have Jameson Paredes. Jameson, thanks for coming in.
No problem, man.
I have taken some time to put together some questions to ask you. You're an instructor at a program, but you're also a valued person in the community. I kind of want to hit on that first about being in the community. I know you own a few businesses.
Yes.
And so why would you want to come out openly and discuss basically your steps to recovery?
Yeah, well, I have thought about it, and there's a chance, I could lose some dollars. Maybe people won't understand, the entire, the entire thing. Maybe they'll be a little leery. I'm not sure, but there's souls out there just like mine that need to be saved. There's lives, and if I can help them find a way out, just like someone helped me, then it's more valuable to me than a few dollars. So.
To make you feel good about that as well, as I know a lot of business owners that struggle with the same thing that we're struggling with.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can just touch some of them and give them some hope through your message. So let's go to your story. I know your story. We spent some time together. Some things we're going to leave out that we discussed. But what I want to know is how you did it this time, because I know there was some steps getting up to this.
Yes. Well. This time was different. My story, I guess, is I went in once in about half the time, but did all the work in half the time and was still trying to work through it. And I didn't give it the time it needed. I didn't give it enough time and focus that it deserved. And it only took about a month for me to relapse the first time. And the second time, I had to commit. And I had to realize this isn't just something that I was just going to conquer and walk away, and that was my mentality.
So what did you leave out the first time? What do you feel like you could have done differently or better to grasp that?
Honestly, I'd probably give it one word: ego.
Okay.
Ego, big time. I had to find some humility in that. I'm not just going to defeat this thing and then move on. It's something that you will fight every day. And probably forever, and the fight gets easier, as you know, but it's still a fight.
So what surrounded that ego? What were you concerned about? What would you have to drop?
Well, everything, everything. If you really want to get into it, it's a lasting kind of joke, but in all seriousness, I literally had to change my entire cage. When I say that, I changed everything down to my pillowcase when I came through the second time.
Okay, hold on. So this is kind of a running joke at our program, and I want to elaborate. But as joking as it is, there's some absolute foundational truth to it.
Yes.
And so I've heard the story a few times, but I've never heard it directly from you. So share it. It's a tool that we all can implement. So I want to hear your words.
Okay, so pretty much, if there's anything that's going to remind you of that life, get rid of it. If it's people, if it's places, if it's things, right? We talk about those a lot, but I mean, there's triggers all over your house, and so I didn't want the same color, I didn't want the same blanket, I didn't want the same anything as a reminder of myself of the new person that I am. Okay.
And so you told the guys you changed out the pillowcases?
I literally told them that I changed it all, changed the pillowcases, right down to the pillowcases, and I meant it, and I was dead serious. Yeah.
So the second time you came back through recovery, had you ever tried to do it by yourself? Have you ever tried to just be sober without help from people?
Yes, it doesn't work.
Why?
Because you can't do it alone. You just can't. You have to surround yourself with people on the same mission. It's just the way it is.
So outside of your program, who else, where are your other team members from?
Outside of the program, I've took some from the program, but first and foremost, God. My relationship with God has really got me through. And my wife is one that just absolutely refused to give up on me when everyone else had. And she's been my rock. God gave her amazing strength. And now I have, now we're a couple years later, and I've got the family that turned their back, they're back, they're supporting me, and it takes time, but man, I've got a solid crew, just an amazing cage of people.
So they're not just, because I feel like sometimes when we go to recovery, we just want those men around us that are doing the same battle. And so one of the skills we have to learn is to go out and find other people. Where do you reach out? I know we talked about CrossFit before. That's kind of its own little community as well.
Yeah.
Those people are trying to help you stay sober. So where else are you reaching to?
Yeah, CrossFit's a great place, family environment. You know, the gym, your gym buddy is important for me. That's where I put a lot of my focus and energy is the gym, and that really helps me mentally. But church, you know, my pastor has been an incredible mentor. He was on the show, Pastor Ernie. You know, a lot of my new family has, you know, when I say that, friends that are family, but new family has really come from churches and things like that, and something that, you know, back in those days I probably wouldn't have said.
We kind of shy away from. So if you could speak to somebody who's struggling right now with addiction, what could you tell them? What support could you offer them?
If I could say something to somebody currently struggling with addiction, I would just say that you can't do it alone, and that there's people willing and able to help, and people that have already crawled out of that hole, you know, and I mean, I'll get in the hole with you because I know the way out, you know. Find somebody and go get the help, man, because you can't do it alone. And trust me, there's a better life out there. There's purpose and there's life.
Tell me about this better life, because I'm excited to hear it. I know your wife. I'm excited, and she's coming on here in a second, and she's going to tell some stories, I'm sure, about you.
No, really.
But I want to know what's better about your life today.
Oh man, you know, I'm actually blown away by my life today. I really am, because I get to. I don't have to, but I get to speak places, teach places, people that want to hear my story, the story that you didn't want to tell anybody in addiction because you were so ashamed, is the story that can save lives, you know. And man, I'm just so blessed to have what I have, and really, you know, it took some time, but God gave me back everything that I had lost that was important, you know, and more.
What was the greatest thing He gave you back?
My family. My wife is happy. My kids are happy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry, so you better stop on that one. Yeah,
that's good.
The truth. It's the truth.
Man, I don't usually get emotional either, but I know the battle. I know the day I got a call to your house.
Yeah.
And it was the voice of your wife saying, "Hey, man, this dude's savable. We need help," you know.
Yeah.
And just those people in our lives, those people that are continuing to battle with us.
Yes.
You know, and those are the questions I'm going to ask her. Like, how did she have so much strength to stay with us? Because I'm weak out of left.
yeah. Me,
you know what I mean?
I can't say I would have stayed. I mean, I'm telling you, she was given some superhuman strength to stick by, and she'll tell you, you know, her side, But that's what you need to find in your life, is people that somebody can call that will drop everything and crawl through your window if they have to come save your butt, you know, and that's what we need to do. As recovered addicts, that's what it takes now, you know, to give back.
So how are you giving back? What are you doing?
You know, I'm involved now in youth, which is not something, you know, a youth at the church, not something I would have ever been able to say really before. I come teach, you know, at the recovery center as much as possible, usually a couple times a month. Mm-hmm. What a blessing just to have guys smile when you walk in and be excited to hear what you have to say, you know, and you know, it even comes down to daily life, because I'm such a different person than I was before, that, you know, I just try to breathe positivity, you know, and give back what I didn't have before, but what I have now.
The question I have is, why do we stay in this addiction? Why do we, like, if we just could get a glimpse of that other side, why would we actively stay involved with that?
I really, truthfully, not obviously addiction's a hard battle. You know, it's a hard battle, and in that darkness, your body and your mind is telling you that that's all that's important. And the lies, you know, I truly believe that the lies of the devil is just telling you that this is all you're worth. You know, that this is your value. And man, if you could just get a glimpse, you know, of the actual life that's available for you, I believe addicts would recover, and that's what I try to give them, you know.
We have a couple minutes left. I want to get a little bit deep real quick with you. I know you have a personal relationship with Christ.
Yes.
I know Christ helped you. Ooh, I don't know why I'm getting emotional.
Come on, we got a couple minutes.
I got to keep this going. But I want to know how your faith, your testimony, how are you doing on a daily basis? Because you have everything back that you had last time.
Yes.
And then you relapsed. A great job, great wife, great kids, great home, vehicle. I mean, you know what I mean? Where people on the outside looking in said, Jamo's never, he's up here, man. He's never going to fall. So how do we maintain in our minds a resolve, a commitment never to go back to that life?
Man, be honest, I came to the realization that God was there the whole time. And probably the reason I'm even alive, not probably, but I'm convinced that the reason I'm alive is because he was there and he had a purpose for my life. And every day now I spend that time in the morning, in the evening, in the day. I used to laugh at my dad because he would listen to worship music 24/7. Now I'm that guy,
Yeah.
But I have I have a relationship with the person, God, not just attending church, but it's in me now, and it's in my family. It's at the center of everything we do. And I'm telling you, it keeps you right there.
Okay, so we like to end each little segment with a question from the community.
Okay.
And my question is, and I just had it in my head, but I want to preface it correctly. So knowing what you have now, okay, what would you tell another person? They're wanting to give up. They're wanting to go back because it's hard, man.
Yes.
I mean, I remember like it was yesterday. I told my story this morning. I was laying in the bathroom, the most dirtiest place you could be. I'm laying on the floor just pleading. But one tool that you could offer somebody that's really struggling, that's wanting to turn their life around, but just can't get it?
Actually, I have to give you two, because the first one I'm gonna have to say higher power for sure, because without it I probably wouldn't be sober. But the second one, I'm gonna say connection, man. And that 100% get connected with. They don't have to be recovered addicts, but get connected with people that have your back, that will just support you. And that, I think, is the number one most important thing, is to surround yourself with those people, because in that life, you don't have to actually reach out. You've always got somebody saying, "Hey man, what are you doing today? What's up? How you doing?" And that I think is greater than having just someone to call.
Excellent. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with The Fix. Welcome back to The Fix. I'm Brock Bevel. Join me on the second half of the show is Jameson and Katrina Paredes. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
I know that the last episode got a little emotional with us, and I have a feeling that we need some sponsorships in here, but I know you can do it, and I'm appreciative. I know it's hard. We've gone through some questions, but the first question I want to ask you is, what role did you play in Jameson's recovery? I know that's where he kind of got emotional.
Yeah.
But what role
I
did you
think
play?
that what he said was just the support. Everybody else, friends, family, had turned their back on him, and for whatever reason that I still may not understand, I was the only one that didn't leave his side. It was, me praying and on my knees begging. Yep, couldn't stop crying.
That's okay. But what people don't understand is this wasn't like his first. Wasn't a first relapse or first difficult moment. There were some speed bumps.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
how long had you gone through this?
In his active addiction, probably a couple of years before, at least a year before he went in and got help the first time. Then when he relapsed, it was the worst. I've never seen him use so much, and he would disappear go wherever to a hotel room and use drugs, and I wouldn't be able to get a hold of him, and that's scary, not knowing if he's okay or where he's at.
So what effect did that have on your personal life, like mentally?
Man, I thought I was crazy. Crazy for sticking around, hanging with him, and but in our marriage, it forced me to leave the house. My daughter and I left because it wasn't fair to her. It wasn't fair to me when he would leave and not come home. I had to protect her. You know, one thing I learned is that I don't have any control over addiction or what he's going to do, no matter how much you try to control it. As a loved one, you can't. And so I had to do what I needed to do for myself and our daughter to keep us safe and to keep me sane and to be able to be a good mom to her while he was still battling.
So you were actually kind of being bombarded too, because I kind of remember you had family members and friends and people in the community saying, "Hey, Katrina, are you really going to keep going through this?"
Yeah.
How did you stay like focused? How did you? I mean, I know you love him. I know he's a good man, but still, there's a level of distrust and there's some moments of decision.
Yeah. I think just because I knew who he was, I know deep down who he was as a person. I know his heart, I know his character. I knew that addiction wasn't really him. And even though I had people telling me, you know, why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you putting your daughters through this? And it was God. God would not let me leave. I mean, if it was up to me, I could tell you I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Absolutely not.
So in the last episode, we briefly talked about your level of commitment. An addict, he's got to have his team, he's got to have all these people around him, but the level of commitment that you had to have for yourself, because ultimately, like you said, you had no power over him. Yeah. What forced you or what helped you make the decision to get sober this time and stay sober?
It wasn't my choice. You know, she had actually, I think you called probation, right?
I turned
She
him
called
in.
my probation officer and turned me in, and you know, I was mad. I was mad. In active addiction, I wanted nothing to do with that, you know, but it did force me to get in, and it was probably, I'll give it less than 2 weeks of actual recovery, you know, back in the program, which I was used to. But back in the program, less than 2 weeks, my mind changed back, and I was so thankful that I was there.
Good. So you had to put some boundaries on this, because even the second time, as he was getting sober and over time, did you still feel like you were triggered, like he could easily go back, or do you feel like you just open arms trusted him?
Oh no, there's not open arms trust.
Even today?
No. Well, today I think I do have. I mean, maybe not 100%, because I know that's always an option for him to go back to, for sure. But early in his sobriety, yeah, there's triggers, definitely. Even, you know, on my end, there's triggers for an addict and there's triggers for a loved one.
Speak from your angle. What triggers do you experience?
Just certain actions, you know, if I knew he would get off work at 6 o'clock, if he wasn't home by 6:15, where are you? Why aren't you home yet? You know, and he had to learn that that was now his responsibility of being upfront and telling me, hey, I'm going to run to Safeway after I leave work. So I knew that I didn't have to expect him home in 10, 15 minutes after he got
But it's
off
crazy how we get this new norm of living. Like now when we're more accountable. And I know for me, one of mine was I used to lock my phone. And it was a mental thing that I just kept my phone locked, nobody could see it. Even if I wasn't doing anything wrong, I still have it. But now I just feel like, that's something that I can feel gets triggered in me that I need to be careful with. So do you have any others that other people may be experiencing?
Yeah, just open honesty, you know. I mean, you have to have that open line of communication with your addict and talk about what triggers them, so you know how to support them. Even, you know, over 2 years into his sobriety, you know, it's still a learning process for us. The open line of communication on, you know, what he needs to be able to continue to stay sober, and what I need him to do as a husband, as a father, as a leader of our home. So
what do you do to maintain, like, do you guys openly talk about your triggers? If one happens, do you just discuss it, or what is your tools?
I mean, I have, and one thing that I'll point out for her is she's never had to experience anything like that, but she did her very best to put herself in my mind and try to understand what I was going through as the addict. You know, and she, like she said, she doesn't 100% trust me, and I think if I 100% trusted myself, I would relapse, because that's not anything that I ever wanted to say to myself, is that I'm better, you know. It's always going to be a battle, but as far as that goes, we used to talk about the triggers. They're so less often now that I don't really have to throw them out there. But early on, we definitely did, and there was that level that I had to commit to. Like, you know, I'm no longer allowed to just stop by the gas station, you know, without saying, hey, I'm going to be a few minutes late.
Yeah.
He used to joke and say, I earned that responsibility
That's right.
of having to tell my wife when and where I'm going to be.
I love that.
Can't blame her.
No. So let me ask you this one's kind of a deeper question, maybe in your brain. And I don't want to build Jamo up too much, but this community knows him.
Yeah.
Right? His relapse was well known to the public. Right? There was a level of, I don't want to say embarrassment, but there was a moment of difficulty. I mean, I remember there was a traffic stop and everybody's calling saying, hey man, what's going on? And it was just like, there was this, I don't know if you want to call it embarrassment, disappointment, frustration, what it was, but how did you let it not buckle you? Because there's a lot of people in your situation, Katrina, that would buckle, that would just say, I'm done, this is too embarrassing.
Yeah.
Jamo can't do it. How did you do it?
God, again, you know, going through this where we now have a greater purpose in our life to help others, like he was speaking before, reach into the darkness and pull somebody else out. And, you know, at the very beginning, I was really ashamed, you know, because it's a very shameful thing. And you don't think that this, you know, handsome, awesome guy is a drug addict.
Right.
You know, you think drug addict, oh, they're dirty and homeless and, you know, you don't think of a successful person. And, you know, that's what I came to realize, that it just doesn't have a face, you know, and by sharing our story, you know, it could happen to anybody. It is anybody. You know, more often than not, you know somebody that knows an addict, and you know, that's now my purpose, is to help somebody else go through it.
Okay, speak to the wives. A lot of wives, hopefully they're watching this.
Yeah.
What would you tell them? They're going through a similar situation. And no, I don't want to ever say that addiction is the same in anybody's home.
Absolutely.
But what support would you offer them?
I would say reach out to somebody who has been through it. You know, like you said, nobody's story is the same. And I would, you know, our story, we are probably really blessed that we made it through and we're still married. And that might not be the case for somebody else. So I can't tell another wife to stick to it and stay going in their marriage and fight. But, you know, if there's any sort of, you know, possibility for you to, you know, to be that support system for your addict, then do it.
So what are those core foundations that you have to see?
So for me personally, it was Christ.
Okay.
And other people that are Christ-centered, that would give me biblical, Christ-centered advice. You know, they didn't understand why I was staying, but they knew Christ and they have a relationship with him, and so they understood that if, you know, Christ was telling me to stay, then they backed me up in that.
You are a rock, because I'm telling you, because I remember conversations that we had, what should I do? And in my mind, I'm just like, oh my goodness. You know, really, honestly, and I love Jamo, but your level of commitment to him in the process and your relationship with Christ, amazing. So maybe that I love what you're talking about. Go find people that have been through this.
Yeah.
But it's hard to. Not a lot of people want to talk about it.
Right. I found that the more open I was with it, the more people I found. I mean. You know, when I first started talking about it, right there, you know, there was 5 women that were in the same situation, you know. Excuse me. So the more you talk about it, the more people you're going to find.
So today we'll wrap this up, but today, what's your biggest fears about living with an addict? I want to say recovering addict, but I mean, we're still there, but
Yeah.
what's your biggest fears?
My biggest fear is, obviously there's always going to be the possibility of relapse. And one thing that he's told me is that, you know, he has another relapse in him. He doesn't have another recovery in him. That's hard. You know, that still gets me choked up, because I don't, you know, God forbid that should ever happen. You know, I don't want that for me. I don't want that for my kids. our family. So that's probably my biggest fear, just him admitting that if he relapsed, he doesn't have another recovery in him.
So the goal is to keep him from relapse.
Yeah.
So these foundational beliefs that you have are what's going to keep you sober.
Yeah. He doesn't have the opportunity, or he's not afforded the opportunity to not be connected and not have, the men and women in our life that support us unconditionally.
Right.
I would just add quickly that, in recovery, you have a lot of people you have to depend on. And now that I'm on the other side of that, the more people I have depending on me that just want to hear what I have to say, or I'm supporting them in one way or another, that those faces of family, the God-centered life, and honestly, I live life on purpose. I don't have a lot of free time. I'm doing something all the time, for a purpose, and that life will definitely keep you sober,
Thank you. Thank you for your story. Love you guys. I'm proud of you.
Love you.
Thank you for watching The Fix. I'm Brock Bevel. If you know someone who is struggling or affected by addiction, there's hope. There's always hope and always help out there. Please don't give up. You're important and your life matters. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.